Hello everyone and welcome to the first Auto Cartel video. Now you might have seen in my last video that I rebranded and did a small video about why. Obviously I've moved house, all that sort of stuff. I wanted something a bit more representative to the automotive industry. So today I have a bit of a question for you all. What is the best first car? Now there isn't really a right or wrong answer, but as I'm going to show you, we have two cars today that are from both ends of the scale. You have one that is ridiculously cheap and the other one which is, well, the more top end that you could probably afford on your wages from Tesco's, for example. I do have the owner with me of one of them today, and the other one is a daily that I am personally using myself. It's a good car, it's grey. And for now, that is all I'm going to tell you. So let's have a look at the cars. Right, so these are the two cars in question. Now I'll start by telling you the price of each car because they are very different. This one here is obviously your typical first car, it's cheap, and this one cost the owner £250. This car, obviously, it's a lot newer, it's a 21 plate. This cost £14,000. I won't say any more because the owner stood behind the camera. Come on in, mate, and we'll get started and talk through your car first. So if you want to introduce yourself and tell us what your car is.
So hi, I'm Will, and this is a 2005 1.2 16 valve Renault Clio Expression.
Now you paid 250 quid for that car.
No, sure
so
did. What
the hell's wrong with it? Because you don't get a good car for 250 quid, let's be honest.
So I travelled down to Waterlooville to buy it, and it was £250 like we've said, and the clutch was gone in it. So
not too bad a fix then, really.
No, not really. So me and my old man drove it back from Waterlooville back to Newbury, put a clutch in it, done a cam belt water pump, full service.
Typical stuff, yeah.
And made it nice to drive, pretty much.
Not, well, you know, for a 1.2. For a
made
1.2.
it okay to drive.
So what are we talking sort of horsepower? Because 1.2s tend to be slow.
Yeah, so at the minute she's sat at around 75 horsepower, which is
not bad for your first car, let's be honest.
For its engine size, it is one of the most high power 1.2s
of that era.
Yeah.
Of that era car. Now, apart from the obvious, what you've done to it, bits and bobs of that, how much do you pay for insurance? Because obviously that is the big question today.
Yeah, so I paid my insurance per year.
This is your is this your first year?
Yeah, first year.
First year.
I passed in February, this February just gone this year, and it cost me £1,660 for a full year fully comp insurance.
No black box,
no black
like
box, no restricted or anything like that.
That's really cheap.
No pay per mile, £1,660.
Now we've done a bit of research on the insurance category of this car. Now it is very low. It's insurance category 3, which is I don't know of another car that is lower than that. But obviously that's why your insurance is so cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's spot on. I don't know what you can get something like this for second-hand without the bits that you've done to it. Yeah, so you get this car for about £1,000 to 1,500 quid, something
around
like that.
yeah, around £1,000.
That's not bad, seeing as you could buy it, do it up if you had the know-how and sell it on. So yeah, we spoke about that car. Let's move on. Now, obviously, this car is my personal daily, and obviously Annie's personal daily. Now, you know Annie from the channel before. I'll put her Instagram there if you want to go check out her Jazz, because that's been on the channel before, and that's pretty sick too. But this is her daily. Was used when she got her job down at 3SDM in Lymington, so it was a bit of a commute. Needed something good on fuel. So this is not her first car. However, I do not know what that would cost for a first-time driver to insure. I have no idea. I do know that it is in insurance category 8, which is a little higher than that. Obviously, that makes a big difference, but you have a lot more options these days with black boxes and stuff like that to make your insurance go down to the same price. Now, it does mean you are a bit restricted in what you do. Driving wise, you can have curfews, you can have speed restrictions, all that sort of stuff. Which some people will want because it'll make your insurance plummet the next year. But obviously not everyone wants that because they feel trapped, and a lot of people will do, like a lot of people I work with, they do, obviously sometimes do 6 till 2, or 2 till 6, or 2 till 10. You know, there's a lot of shift work that a black box it just isn't good for.
It gives you a lot of restriction, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it's too much.
It's bad, yeah. I wouldn't agree with it.
Also, if you need to overtake a car and you've got a speed restriction on, just because you've overtaken the car because it's not driving safe, that makes your insurance go up. Now that doesn't make you a bad driver. It just makes your insurance go up for no reason. So
exactly.
I didn't have one when I passed my test, but we won't talk about how long ago that was.
That was a while ago.
But anyway, back to the car. Insurance category 8. This is a 1 litre turbo 3-cylinder. It is very good on fuel. On the way here to film this, I got 60 to the gallon. Now, obviously, that's more than that, but it obviously is a smaller engine. But it does have more horsepower. It's 95 PS, which I think is around 87 horsepower.
I think so, yeah.
It's something like that. I don't really understand the PS. I don't know why they just can't put horsepower.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice, clean car. But what I will say, and this is why I would personally probably go for a newer car rather than an older car. This is an SE technology, which means it has Apple CarPlay. Now, that is very good for obviously keeping you off your phone and limiting the distractions to your phone,
Yeah.
which obviously these days is a big thing, especially as they're cracking down on that with...
Yeah. The amount of people you see texting and driving, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I am not one of those.
No,
I thought
me
you
neither.
lot say that, 'cause
Me
I've never
neither.
done that. It's like drinking and driving. You don't do it because you spill your drink.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a nice car to drive. The interior is it's a tad basic. I prefer the interior of the Clio. Older cars I always find a bit better, but
A bit more character to them.
yeah, they always do have a bit more character. But it's based off an Audi A1 and a VW Polo platform. Parts are very cheap, so if you did need to replace anything, or you had any problems like this has had,
Yeah.
this has had a lot more problems than your car.
Yeah.
So this is where the whole cheap versus expensive comes in.
The parts
Because-
are cheap, and they're quite easy to find, aren't they? Because it's
Yeah,
the
there's so
whole
many of them.
German group. They keep their parts quite readily available.
Yes,
so,
yeah, and because they're shared across so many different platforms,
Yeah.
like for example, the rear wiper on a Porsche Cayenne is exactly the same as an A4.
Yeah. It's just reuse and recycle, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's what makes is it like cross-platform?
Yeah.
I can't remember what they call it. But
Cross-platform manufacturing. or
yes, that's the
something,
one. Yeah. How do you know that? You're younger than me. You work in that industry, it's fine. But yeah, it's cheap to run. It's obviously not as cheap to insure, but then you'd save the money in your fuel bill. Tyres are cheap because they're a thicker sidewall, stuff like that. The thicker sidewall you go, it's not as sporty, so cheaper tyres. And yeah, it's a good all-round car, and it's quite comfortable for what it is. I don't really like new cars, but it's actually quite comfortable on long trips. I know a lot of people won't care because they're just going backwards and forwards to college.
Yeah.
But the biggest selling point between that over that that has a turbo, so that goes.
Exactly.
Well, a little bit. It just sort of
If
goes,
you
sounds
can
like
make that sound, you can make the turbo sound easier on that than you can that.
Yeah, I don't think they even thought of a turbo, and that was a
No,
thing.
there's room for one.
yeah,
There
mind
is
you.
room for a conversion, but
yeah.
doing it would, yeah,
Yes, it does make turbo noises, but it sounds like an asthmatic sneezing.
yeah.
It's not amazing, but yeah, basically, that's what we. That's my recommendation. Personally, I would probably go for the cheaper car, only because there's room for improvement. Now, if you take this car, 250 quid, you spend £1,000 on it, you still make money on it. Obviously, this car is very cheap, so granted, there's going to be a few problems. Now, Will's already said that he's done the cam belt, done the water pump, and put a clutch in it. Now, that was when he first got it. So, since you've been driving it for what, a year, nearly a year now?
Yeah, around about a year.
Have you had any trouble with your £250 car?
Well, when I was learning, I was just going down the road and driving as normal, and it wouldn't warm up. I was looking on temperature gauge, it was still cold.
It's still right down,
Still right down,
chuffing out
and
smoke out the back.
I was best part of into a half-hour journey by then.
So you would have thought it'd be nice and warm by then?
Yeah, so I was like, there's definitely something wrong here. Looked into it, and it come up, it could be a thermostat fault. It's either a closed thermostat or something like a clog in the pipe from old
could
coolant.
be anything, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you get a car, you don't think to, I'm going to flush everything out, you just get in and drive it because you're excited.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your first car.
Yeah. So what I've done is I got it into my garage, drained the coolant out of it, took the thermostat out, and it's the old wax-filled thermostats.
Yeah, so
they
as
open with heat.
Yeah. Obviously, if it's not getting hot, it don't open.
Yeah,
but of course they fail over time. It's
yeah, they do
to a
deteriorate.
certain extent. It's a consumable part.
Yeah. So dropped it in a mug of hot water, and it didn't open at all.
Nope.
Didn't make no changes whatsoever. So I slapped a new thermostat in it, took it down the road, 5-10 minutes. It was 90 degrees, perfect optimal temperature.
That's all right.
And that was it.
That's
so,
not bad.
And since then, apart from, I've had to do 2 CV boots on it. Because
they're a bit of a pain, so I would recommend probably taking it to a garage to do it if you don't have the know-how. Because not only are they a pain to do, but you get an hell of a mess with all the CV grease. Because that's I know what's it called? What's the grease called? I can't remember.
Oh, graphite grease.
Graphite grease. That's it. So how much to do the thermostat and 2 CV boots?
I think the thermostat was £12.
So pennies.
And I think the 2 CV boots, I think it cost me around 40 quid, 36, 40 quid.
So that's not, is that for both?
Yeah,
that's
that was
not
for
bad
both.
at all. Yeah, of course, that's just to cover, you haven't got to replace a drive shaft or anything like that.
Yeah.
So overall, that car has still cost you less than 500 quid.
Oh yeah, it doesn't owe me anything pretty much at this point.
With your insurance and all the bits wrong with it that you sorted, you're still in 2,000,
Under £2 grand.
Under 2 grand.
Under 2 grand.
Under 2 grand. My maths is shocking.
It's still around under 2 grand.
That's cheap. If you're someone who struggles with money and just want a cheap car that is still good on fuel, I would recommend buying something like this. It doesn't have to be this, but it's worth looking at all the different insurance groups and just narrowing it down from there. Let's move on to the Seat.
Yeah.
Right, we've spoken about Will's Clio, so let's move on to the problems and the cost of running this thing. Now, I've already said it's a very expensive car to buy as your first car, but the running costs of it sort of outweigh the fact that it is worth a lot of money. Like I've said before, the tyres are cheap, but the rest of it is sort of not. Now, I'll explain a little more. This car is just over a year old, so it's still under warranty, because when you buy these, they come with, I believe, 3 years warranty. Now, that covers pretty much everything bar your wear and tear and service items. So this is where I get into the things that have been wrong with it. Now, when we first got the car, the stereo, has Apple CarPlay, so it's a big glass screen and everything, and it's a good bit of kit. It wouldn't turn on when it was cold. Now, from what Seat have said, it won't turn on until the car is up to a certain temperature inside. Now, I don't know how true that is and whether they were just fobbing us off, but I don't know. But it went back because it eventually would not turn on at all. So for Annie going to Lymington every day, it's an hour and 10-minute journey. she needed the sat nav on, which obviously she could put on her phone, but you've just spent 14 grand on a car, you want it to work. Now this went back to SEAT 3 times, I believe, and it finally got fixed. So, and it's been fine ever since. So there was obviously a problem with it from the factory, which can happen. It's not a problem. Another problem that has that occurred not long after having the car kept getting stuck in reverse to the point where you could not get it out with the engine running. You would turn it off, flick it out, and then it'd be fine. You could go through all first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and it'd be perfectly fine, wouldn't get stuck at all, but reverse would always get stuck. Now, it was only when it was hot. Now, I always found that really weird, because normally everything's a bit looser, a bit freer, you know, when it's warm, but not in this case. That is now fixed. It turns out that whoever built the car hadn't adjusted the cables on the gearbox correctly, so it was just pulling it a bit too tight. It's now fixed. It's good as gold. It's still a bit stiff, but you find even in my car, my reverse is a bit stiff because you've got to go through a gate to get it into reverse. Another problem, there's been quite a few. There is a clunk coming from the underside of the car. Now, I believe it's something subframe related or a bush. SEAT cannot find it. Now, that is all really the problems we've had with the car. There hasn't been much at all. But seeing as it's a brand new car, should you really be having these problems? If I'd have bought the car, obviously I didn't, if I'd have bought the car, I would have probably taken it back by now, because you just spent £14,000 on a car. I know, ideally, your first car, you don't really want to have to faff about taking it back and forward to the garage all the time under warranty, because all the problems that have occurred with the car have been under warranty. Not ideal, is it? The other thing that is a bit of an expense is the servicing. Now, because it's a new car from a dealership, you don't have to do this, but they recommend you do, to keep the warranty on the car, is take it to the dealership to be serviced. Now, that is all very well and good. However, a service on that car, just an oil service alone, I believe they did the air filter as well, I might be wrong, it was £200. Now, if you're 17 and you've just bought your car and you're paying £260 a month for a nice brand new car, you don't want to be forking out all that money, especially as you're just starting up in your first job, you know, you haven't got a lot of money spare. So £266 a month plus £200 a year, I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but to someone that, you know, wants to look after their car, but they can do it a lot cheaper, that's a lot of money, especially as you keep having to take it back to the garage anyway. That is my sort of take on the whole thing. If it was me, I would buy a cheaper car and probably go something middle of the road. I couldn't do that when I was 17. That ship sailed a long time ago. Don't laugh, William. Yeah, that ship sailed a long time ago, but I went with the cheaper option. The main objective of today was to sort of narrow down what you should do for your first car, and just to help you out. Now, if it was me, I would pick the Clio. 250 quid is nothing. I can fix it and do all the jobs that need doing and still have money spare for insurance and just, you know, messing around with my friends, putting loads of fuel in and going for drives up and down the country. Now, if you buy something a bit more expensive, yes, it might be more reliable, it might be nicer, it might have better spec, you know, it shows in this. But you still have all the problems, you still have the wear and tear. Yes, it's better on fuel, but that's not the only thing you need to worry about. Right, that is today's video done. I hope you have a bit more insight into what to do with your first car, and it's sort of helped you a little bit. Like I said before, you know, you have an expensive car and a cheap car. There's many more options you can do. You can go middle of the road and you'll still be saving some money over an expensive car. So there's always that.
Yeah.
And another thing to note is comparison websites. Always have a look on comparison websites, because there's so many different insurance companies out there, and you want to know you're getting the best deal. and have a ring around as well. I know some people can be a bit funny about ringing up insurance companies and stuff like that.
But
I know I was when I passed my test. But honestly, it is worth just ringing round and seeing, you know, comparing different prices and like, what would you call it? Like getting
bartering against people.
Yeah,
9 times
bartering.
out of 10, you ring up an insurance company saying that you've had a quote from someone else, and they say, "Can you do X price better than they can?" And 9 times out of 10, they'll actually help you out because they are quite decent. To be fair.
They want your business. They don't want your business. They just want your money, don't they? Because
They want your customer base because it looks better.
Yeah. And if you stay with them for a long time, you're going to get a bit of discount anyway. Whereas if you keep chopping and changing, you're not going to get the best discount.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, big thanks to Will for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I hope you all enjoyed Will's car. You can follow on his Instagram. I'll put a link in the description below because there are some really nice photos of the car that don't show the dents. So yeah. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram as well. Again, it's down below. And join us again for another video. If you want to get your car on the channel, drop me a DM. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Come on in, William. Let's go back in the warm, shall we?
Let's run off into the sunset like Velma and Louise.
Velma and Louise.
That's what it is, isn't it?
It's more like Shaggy and Scooby-Doo.
Uh-oh, Raggy.
Scooby's next.